Right. Okay. Jumping right into it because we are getting straight into the point. There's so much to talk about. I'm going to keep the floor open. Udit, what are your thoughts on the third test between India and England? The elephant in the room is the pitch. What did you think about the pitch?
Yeah, first of all, I thought we will be discussing day 5 today, but apparently we had this unique 2-day test match regarding pitch, which you put me right on the spot for. I think the pitch wasn't probably the best, but I don't think it was that bad the way people are making it out to be. I think the game could have easily lasted day 4, early morning, could have easily gone to the morning of day 4. However, the real thing why we actually saw the game ending day 2 was because lack of application from the visitors. If you look at the second innings, I think they weren't just ready to sort of put some application, show some temperament. A lot of crazy shots being played. Just look at the dismissal of Johnny Bairstow and Sibley, and that's not Test cricket for me. If you were trying to play Test cricket, playing for your team, defending the series, trying to make it to the World Test Championship final, you got to show more application. Something what Joe Root showed in the first test, but that was lacking throughout for me. Ping ball is definitely challenging, especially the SG ping ball. What we were talking about earlier before this meeting, SG ball is a totally different ping ball than what we saw in England and in Australia and Adelaide test. So this ball is actually, the more straighter you keep, the more it'll hurry on. So it doesn't need actually loop from a spinner. So someone like Akshar Patel or someone like Brad Hogg of Australia in the past, who we have seen who can keep quite straight, can actually be really lethal with this ping ball. And Akshar Patel showed that he was more effective than Ashwin because he just kept it very simple. And that's what you need to do on this track. And yeah, so these are my views. I think England were all the reactions coming from the England experts, the former players. I think it's probably coming in probably because they haven't watched the game, or probably by the time they woke up, England were already bowled out. And I think that's where their desperation and all these comments are coming from. So yeah, that's where I stand actually. I think India bowled really well. We didn't bat well in the first innings either, but that's something we need to work on. But fair and square win for India. We move on to fourth test.
Right. Okay. Interesting point. So one thing which struck me as well, not only in this test, but through the series, do the BCCI need to invest in proper curators? Because we saw in the first pitch in Chennai, the first 2 days it was road, then it started crumbling, which made the toss important. What are your views on that matter, Acquin? Would you like to see some standardization in the pitch process where you have the same person through the series looking into the pitches?
I think they definitely need to improve on the aspect. I think they need to improve at least the benchmark. That's sort of, they need to raise the benchmark required to sort of become a pitch curator. Because if I'm not mistaken, the curator for the first for the first test in Chennai was somebody who was an absolute rookie. And I thought that was complete insanity from the BCCI. I mean, you cannot, in a high-profile series as this one, you cannot have rookies building, preparing the pitch, especially in the all-important first test. So yeah, I agree with you. I think they need to definitely set a higher benchmark and have more stringent procedures and training for the curators. Even the third test, we could see that the English spacers, they were having issues with the area, the landing marks where they landed their feet. And on multiple occasions, they had to get one of the pitch curators to come and start, bashing the, what is that little pole that they use, let's say pitch bashing pole, let's call it that, to come and reinforce that little, that stepping. Yeah. So, no, I agree. I think they really have to improve on that aspect. Now, just in regards to the pitches so far in the series, I thought the worst pitch was actually the first test. It was not even the second or the third test. I think the second and the third test had challenging pitches, but not impossible to play on. With a bit of better application from, say, England, I think both tests, for the second and the third test, they would have been a bit more competitive than they eventually ended up being. But I think the first test was a proper pitch lottery, not the second or the third. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, interesting point. I mean, ideally, you could look at it from a point of view whether, you would want a pitch not to be decided by the toss. And I felt certainly the first test was decided by the toss. Moving on, Vibhash, what we notice on Indian cricket fans is a lot more threads on two specific batsmen, Pujara and Rahane, who are supposedly seniors in this team, but are not living up to their potential at home, especially Pujara, who is known to be very good in Indian conditions against spin. What are your views on this matter? Should India drop them just as a reminder? What would you do?
I think when we talk about these players, what our fans are missing is that they have not scored hundreds at home. Like we are used to seeing them scoring hundreds in each series. Maybe not so much with Rahane, but at least Pujara, who has very good home record. And when was the last time he scored 100 in India? I don't remember that. But even so, we are missing that from Pujara. Rahane, we are quite used to seeing him not doing so well in home conditions. But this is the time then when we see conditions like we had in first test, where it was a flat pitch, and that was a time when we really wanted someone to step up and score big 100. So that did not happen, and the conditions in which match should have been drawn, it ended up being actually in India's loss. India did not lose it in the fourth inning on fifth day. Rather, they lost it when they actually scored just 300, and not even 300, just when they were 72 for 4 in reply to England's 578. That was not the kind of start they were expecting on a flat track. So that is something which is easily being noticed, that our players, even Kohli has not scored a big 100 for quite some time now. So that is being noticed as right now, and people are criticizing that part. So I think maybe it's debatable whether we should be dropping them as of now, because Pujara has been performing really well. He's overseas also, and even if he's not getting big scores, he's actually playing crucial knocks. But he is easily, I think, maybe second best batsman in the team behind Kohli.
Right.
Saying that dropping them would be unfair, but with Rahane, he's the vice captain. I don't see him getting dropped for maybe another 2 or 3 years. So that will be the case.
That's pretty big statement when you said. Pretty big statement when you said 2-3 years. I mean, that you're talking about almost the next World Test Championship. I think it happened every 2 years, right? If I'm right, World Test Championship. Yeah. The next one will be in 2023, right around the World Cup. I think I know Rahane did really well in that second test when we got bowled out for 36 in the first test. He led the side well. He scored a century. He led from the front, literally. But you think he had enough in the bank when you say he might be around for next year? He definitely has secured his place because he did extremely well. He led really well in Australia. You think time has come sort of to actually start putting in players, different set of players in home and different set of players away from home. So like Pujara goes again to England, so does Rahane, because they do well away from home. But do you think it's time to move on from Rahane at home now? Not just because he's the vice captain, but is it time to actually put some new young guy in the middle order? Even like we are finding it hard to give chance to Mayank Agarwal, who had done decently. You think maybe we can slot him in the middle, or maybe bring someone else just because Gill has the permanent place now as an opener? Vibhash?
Yeah, so I have heard this suggestion of horses for courses theory even being applied to batsmen. But thing is that unlike bowlers, it would be unfair for a batsman if he gets to play in alien conditions more often than other batsmen. But for example, say any batsman, maybe in case of Rahane, it is a bit exception that his home record is not that good as his away record. He averages like in 30s, 38, 39 in India, and overseas he maybe averages 44, 45, something like that. But that is not a norm. It's kind of exception. But if we try to apply similar like horses for courses for batsmen, then in that case, what would happen is that some of them might miss like opportunities to play at home, and which is really important for their confidence, because in home conditions, they can see if someone is going through rough patch, they can get back into form. They might enjoy those conditions more and actually score more runs, and that eventually might help in performing overseas also.
Amey, I have a question for you, right? So we all know, I think this news release, I think it was yesterday or day before, that Jasprit Bumrah has been released from the squad for the fourth test. And really, my question really pertains to, would you go with two seamers for the next test, or will you bring in Hardik Pandya and go with either Ishant or Umesh and then play the three spinners that we did in the third test? So basically, it's about the combination, sort of, with the bowling and the all-rounders. So what are your thoughts? Like, what are you going to do?
I'm a bit torn up. Thanks for the question, by the way. I'm a bit torn up on that because I would personally go for Pandya, but whether because it's a low-key series for him as well with the ball, right? I think the last test, Bumrah bowled 5 or 6 overs in the entire series. I mean, I'm sure that whatever pitches come out, the spinners are going to bowl a lot in the second innings anyway. So he would probably max have to bowl 15 overs through the test, which is right up his alley, because he wouldn't want to bowl excessively given that he's coming back from an injury. So my gut feeling is if Pandya is able to bowl 15 overs and the team management would know what his health condition is like, I would actually go with Pandya, and I would trust Pandya with the bat. And instead of Washington Sundar, I would probably go with somebody like Kuldeep, because you are basically looking at Washington Sundar from as a primarily a bowler who could bat. But I feel that it would be nice because the England bowling, they'll go back and basically try to analyze Aksar and Acquin, and they've got a break now. So I would bring in Kuldeep, and I would also bring in Pandya. That would be my compromise with the bat and ball. Those are the few changes I would make.
Okay, so now when you said 15 overs, did you mean 15 overs per innings or for the whole match?
I would say 15 overs for the whole match. So ideally, probably we need him with the new ball initially, just to bowl 4-5 overs, and then obviously Aksar would come in. So I would have Ishant there, not Umesh. I would have Ishant and him bowl the first 6-7 overs in the first innings. And then from that point onwards, assuming that it's a relatively flattish pitch, maybe England make it to 80 overs, you'll have to bowl again. But once in a while, a few 2 or 3 over spell from that point. But ideally, you would just need them with the new ball on the first day just to see whether there's something in the deck for the seamers.
Okay. Udit, Vibhash, what do you guys think about the whole Pandya debate?
I would like to...
Okay, go on.
Yeah, no, I would love to see Pandya in the lineup now, because I think even though this is not a dead rubber, I think we got to bring him. He has been good enough for India in the past when given the chance. One thing I am not confident about is his bowling right now, not because I do not rate him. That's not a thing. I think he has done fairly well. Only thing is he hasn't, whenever he has been given a chance to play for his teams, whether it's Mumbai Indians and IPL, Rohit Sharma has not used him as a bowler. That means he wasn't fit. Not that Rohit Sharma doesn't rate him. That means he wasn't fit at the end of the year. IPL didn't happen in April. IPL happened in October last time or earlier, pretty late in the year. Then again, in T20 series in Australia, Kohli did not use him much again. So that means from the vibe I'm getting is he wasn't really fit in January or December that much also to bowl. And now all the clips I've been seeing on the BCCI TV and all that, I've only seen him doing the fielding drills and all, and there's no talk about him bowling. So we go in without Bumrah in the fourth test, and depending on Hardik Pandya, the bowler who can bat, I think that's a big risk. We might end up. I think that's just a massive risk. Also, you never know if he's going to click right away or not. So I would love to see him in the lineup, but I think if we are going with that mindset that we'll also use him as a bowler, I think that's where I'm not sure. And I think team is smart enough; they are much closer to the player. So they know whether he's fit enough to bowl. But as a fan who doesn't have a clue about what's happening in the dressing room right now, like all of us, I would assume that he's not fit as a bowler right now. And I will keep him out just because the reason why I'll keep him out Bumrah is not there. So I'll rather play a strong bowler, and I'll keep Sundar. Because I'll tell you what, one interesting tweet I read, I think last week, was from Dale Steyn. And as much as I do not agree with England's rotation policy, one thing interesting he mentioned is England is building an army of cricketers. That is even though rotation doesn't work, they're overdoing it. There are some players who are getting ready to play international cricket down the line. So as soon as some main player is injured, the next guy comes in, already had them international exposure. We have that opportunity to do right now with Sundar. He did really well in England. And while I'm not a big fan of his bowling, it's his batting which has shined so far. I think we got to keep playing him. We shouldn't be dropping him every alternate test. He played the last test. Keep him in, back him. Again, not the best spinner in India. There are much better spinner out there. I agree with Amey. Kuldeep could have been played. But I think just because that thing is on my mind, that army of cricketers, we got to be prepared. You never know when Bumrah might go away. You never know when Acquin might need some time off.
Yeah.
We got to have some players who can bat. And I'm not just looking Acquin as a bowler. I'm also looking Acquin as a batsman. We use his batting services a lot. So we got to have that someone batting 6 and 7. And I think Sundar does that batting job for us right now. So I think it's good to have him. So I'll just play Sundar ahead of everyone.
And Vibhash, anything to add before we move to the next topic?
So when you say Pandya in the team, so are you talking about one pacer plus Pandya, or is it two pacer plus Pandya?
One pacer plus Pandya.
What about just one pacer and 3 spinners?
Go down that route.
It's too risky, I think. It's too risky. Because we really don't know what kind of pitch. I mean, people are saying it's going to be much more flatter than the previous test match. So we don't really know what kind of a pitch we're going to get in the fourth final test. And it's a game that we can't afford to lose. So, yeah, I mean, I think Pandya plus one seamer, it kind of makes sense. You're, again, further reinforcing your batting. And, so then what? It leaves Ushant or Umesh as your only guy who can't really bat. You have batting till number 10, I guess. That it extends the batting lineup even further. So I think it makes sense. I think there's a fair point to make. But again, even Udit makes a good point in the sense that, he's a bit too cold to come in and bowl in test matches. But, we know what he's capable. He's a known commodity, but it's just a matter of him being able to sort of...
Interesting thing, Acquin, when you say that, one thing which is coming on my mind is Kohli-Shastri combination hasn't really played 3 spinners a whole lot of times, if I remember. I know they did bring another spinner in the last England tour, but generally they're used to playing 2 seamers all the time. Bumrah just made his debut, right, in India, in Indian test. He had never played a test in India before this. But I know Umesh Yadav and Shami used to bowl regularly for India. So we always had these 2 pacers playing always for India, in India. So Vibhash, so when you ask 3 spinners, I'm interested, what kind of spinners you were looking at, the 3 spinners when you mentioned, and which would have been that one pacer which you would have liked to see?
So say if the conditions are similar to what we got in second test or third test, so in that case, would you back 3 spinners and 1 pacer? Because anyway, pacers are not bowling much.
I think it depends. So for example, if Jadeja was back, I would be comfortable in playing Jadeja, Acquin, Akshar, and Ishant or whatever, because you get that kind of batting depth and stuff like that. And at the same time, probably even I guess Kohli could even do that. It depends on the personnel you have. Now, I trust Jadeja with the bat a lot more than what I trust Washington Sundar. I take what Tix has to say, or Udit has to say rather, in terms of he needs to be back. Sundar needs to be back, and that's fine. But that's still a experimental gamble. Somebody like Jadeja, who we know is very good in Indian conditions, who can open the bowling with ease. I feel I would be comfortable with that. But at the same time, I mean, coming back to the Hardik Pandya issue, I feel that if India are to take the risk, this scenario is completely risk-free. Now, World Test Championship final aside, you literally have to bowl very low number of overs as a pacer anyway. I don't think even Ishant is going to bowl that many if he plays. So when the chips are so low, and Hardik Pandya will probably come in at number 8 or something like that, it's a very low key responsibility that he would be doing, right? Even mentally, I can't think of a better scenario. And if you don't try out Pandya now, maybe when you do need a pace bowling all-rounder for the World Cricket Championship in England, in Lords, you don't know what state of mind Pandya is in. Because again, after this, there's the IPL, there's various other things, and a whole load of things could go wrong. And it's again about your whole army of cricketers thing with Dale Steyn. So, I mean, that's where I stand. I mean, do you agree with that, Tix?
I definitely agree with where your sentiments there. I do believe, like I said, I think last tour in England when we lost again over there 3-1, Pandya did do well over there. So I definitely agree. That's why I want to point out that it's just I'm not too sure. Like, we are so away, we are so alien to the dressing room right now. We have no clue what Pandya is actually capable of right now in terms of bowling. So I don't know, have you guys heard of anything coming from the media, like BCCI or something, that is he bowling in the nets or something? I'm not even sure if he's bowling in the nets,
Yes,
and how much is he bowling it? Yeah. See, my only reluctance to play him right now, I actually agree that we have to play him at some point, because after this, our next test match is going to be in England to play against New Zealand, provided we win or draw here. But so I do agree we have to play him at some point now to prepare him. My only thing is Bumrah is missing out right now, and so our best bowler is gone. Ishant Sharma, the workhorse, but he is not Bumrah. We all know that. And that is where I feel we got to have the people who are actually taking wickets. But if we, I mean, I'm just not too sure about that part. And regarding a point, Amey, about Jadeja, I think Jadeja walks in whenever he's fit. He's going to play ahead for me, even whether it's Sundar or anyone else. Jadeja actually was as good as Ashwin, or even better than him when he was playing in India last time. So if we remember, he outdid the numbers. So yeah, Jadeja, the moment he's available, he walks in ahead of Akshar Patel also for me. So Akshar, even with all the 5 first which Akshar is taking, I think he's going to be better handled by England players in the next test match when they have the red ball back, because Akshar Patel is not a big turner of the ball, and I still believe he's not as smart as a spinner as Jadeja is. So I think England will work that out, and England will probably continue to struggle to Ashwin in the next game. And even, but I think they will watch a lot of Akshar Patel in the next right between this test and next test, and they'll probably handle him better because he's not a big turner of the ball as someone like the Ashwin. And they gave him like 11 wickets in this test. So yeah, I'll keep Sundar just because I believe Ashwin is not there, but just because Bumrah is not there. But if Bumrah was there, I would have loved to play Pandya. Just like, what do you want? That's where I stand. Okay. It's just shame that Bumrah is going to be missing out this test. I don't know for what reason, but I would have loved to see Bumrah complete this series.
No, I think we would all like to see Bumrah just finish out a series. It just makes sense. Now, moving on.
Yeah.
If we talk about the opposition, England have some selection queries of their own. Fundamentally, if you're England, if you're Joe Root, do you bring in Dom Bess as the third spinner and drop somebody like Stuart Broad? Or you trust yourself as the second spinner and just go with Jack Leach? What are your opinions on that, Acquin?
Here's what I would actually do. I would drop someone like Ollie Pope, who has done literally nothing in this series, and bring in Dom Bess, because Dom Bess, he has a decent batting. I think his batting average is decent enough. I think he averages around 25-ish with the bat. So if he can give you 25-ish and then on top of that, give you a legitimate bowling option, I think it would really, really help England's chances of getting a result in their favor in this test match. I thought they should have dropped Ollie Pope for the third test itself, because again, he hasn't been doing that much, and I don't think he's the game changer that in their lineup. Either if they had Moeen early, they could have brought him back in, or Dom Bess. I think they should bring him back and have a Root as the third spinner as well. So in place of Dom Bess, not in place of Dom Bess, in place of Ollie Pope, or they could, if they want to, reinforce their batting and keep the batting strong, they can probably get rid of Jofra Archer, because I don't know what he's been doing with the bat as well. Like, he's playing like a proper tail-ender, and we know that he isn't a tail-ender. And bowling-wise, he's been so-so. He's not really been much significance, I think. So Bess in place of either Ollie Pope if they want to really, reinforce their bowling, or in place of Jofra Archer, if they want to add another spinning option. So that's
Yeah, okay, makes sense. I mean, Vibhash, again, focusing on England. Do you think England really missed Moeen Ali? Because Moeen Ali would have fit in really well on that pitch as somebody who could bat down the order and, bowl a lot of very good, spin. So he's turning out to be quite a missing link for England. And I do feel that maybe they should have persuaded him a bit to stay. I felt that he felt a bit unwanted. What is your opinion on that matter?
They missed second spinner in the third test, but I'm not sure what England could have done to ensure that Moeen Ali stays. But I felt that instead of Moeen Ali, if someone like Bess was there, it would have been much better scenario for England. But definitely Moeen Ali brings more value with bat. I don't rate Moeen Ali with ball much, but we have seen that. I think he took 8 wickets in second test. But India would have handled Moeen Ali much better, even on this track. When I say handled much better, I don't mean that his figures would have been worse, but at least the impact that he could have created, it would not have made much of difference in terms of what someone like Bess could have done.
Right. Okay.
But, I just wanted to add, Bess in place of who though? Would you get rid of an extra batsman, or would you just get rid of the extra seamer? Because I sort of understand why England went with 3 seamers, because it was, I think, the first test match in that newly constructed stadium. So, and they thought, okay, it's the pink ball test, and the last pink ball test, none of, I think, India's spinners took any wickets. So I see the logic behind it. So who would you sort of replace in that lineup and bring in, Bess in place of?
Definitely an extra pacer that was there. So
okay.
I think,
who would that be?
It would either have to be Jofra Archer or Board. I don't think they did. I mean, in the end, Root ended up bowling a lot more, right? So they were passengers anyway. So I think it raises an interesting point, England's approach. Do you play to your strengths, which is clearly pace bowling, or do you play for the conditions? And we've seen this with, say, a team like South Africa, who don't really have a good spinner, and they just have that one spinner in the subcontinent, and they just back their paces. What's your views on that, Udit?
So, first of all, I want to get back to what Vibhash and Acquin was saying, and that sort of will answer your question also. Broad and Anderson, they like to hunt in pairs. They like to hunt together. And they haven't been allowed to do that a lot because there've been this rotation policy, and now when they come back in the game, right? Like Anderson returned back in the third test, skipping the second test. What happens is what plays on the mind of a player is, okay, they want to do this, that, because they couldn't do it in the last match and the series won all. Had they been allowed to play both the tests, they would have already worked on the things which they did wrong in the second test. But you lose that consistency of coming back, and that's why too much changing and chopping doesn't help. So I would trust both Broad and Anderson to perform better together again once they played 2 tests in a row. Like same thing. Imagine if this was the Indian team, we wouldn't want Bumrah to go in and out, back and forth, because it's just annoying. Bumrah, it won't let a player settle down. So I think that was one of the biggest annoying point for English supporters. I would think, that leaving Anderson out, which we discussed a lot earlier. So I would what I'll definitely do is I'll definitely bring in Dom Bess, because you got to copy the locals, what the locals are doing. When we go to England, we try to copy them, how many paces they're looking to make. That's why you got to learn from the locals. And this time, locals are us. So they got to follow what the Kohli and Shastris are doing. We're still trying to keep our 2 pacers in every lineup. But at the same time, we're not overdoing it, And I think English probably overdid this time, by playing Jofra Archer, Stuart Broad, and Anderson together. I think
they played 4 pacers.
Yeah, exactly. So and I think Jofra Archer will miss out for me. Fast bowler, but still miss it out. I would bring Dom Bess for him, definitely. Dom Bess is not rated, just to let you know, from all of the articles and media we have access to, Dom Bess is not rated as high. So, in fact, I was reading the Matthew Atherton's article where he says it's because of the technology, where that's why this game has ended in 2 days. In that particular article, he has mentioned he rates Joe Root as a much better spinner than Dom Bess. And I was surprised to read that because Dom Bess has been picked as a special spinner. But this is the word actually out there in English media. And these are the commentators who are covering English cricket all the time on Sky and or other channels. So this is the kind of word you are. So I would bring Dom Bess because he has done well. I would actually leave Jofra Archer out. I think that'll settle down. You got to play your best pacers who have done best for you over the years for a long, long time. Broad plays for me. I think Broad is still more dangerous bowler to me than any other English spinners also. It's just, and this wicket is not going to be full spinners. It's going to be a little flatter. We got to remember it's going to be a red ball back. And I think Broad will be playing his third game in a row. I think he'll be a much better bowler in this test. If he's allowed to bowl more, I think he'll be bowling more overs in this test because India is not going to hand over too many easy wickets this time in the third test, plus in the fourth test. So I believe Broad will be bowling a lot more overs. So with Anderson. And yeah, they'll give us some tough time. We got to watch out for them.
Just sort of to add to what Udit, I'd just actually like to ask you a question, Amey. Will Broad be rotated out?
I feel he will, but at the same time, I'm looking at Jofra Archer and he is trundling. So I don't know what's going on with him injury-wise because Jofra Archer is a very, he's like 140K typical bowler when he feels like it. So maybe he's going through some personal issues by being in that bubble. I think he's went in England's domestic series with Pakistan or whoever it was. He did breach that bio bubble. So there's something going on with Jofra Archer. I feel he's not 100%, and therefore I feel he's much more likely to be axed on that basis rather than Broad. Right, okay. Moving forward to our last topic of this podcast, probably a bit more political. We saw the world's largest cricket stadium being inaugurated. Some good points and controversy as well. Where do you stand on, so Vibhash, where do you stand on this whole controversy with naming a stadium for a living person, namely Narendra Modi? Do you feel that should be done, or what's your view on it? Because this seems to have become a hot topic, especially in the international media. I mean, I woke up one day and it was on the front page of the Financial Times. Where do you stand on this, man?
I'm not a fan of naming stadiums after someone who's still alive. So maybe it could have been done much later, but right now I think it should not have been done. But anyway, that's not I don't think it should have been a big deal.
Right. Okay. I mean, what are your views? I mean, Acquin, what are your views on the stadium? It looked like a very good stadium based on the infrastructure in and around the stadium. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what are your views in general? I mean, of this whole thing, do you feel that, for example, by naming it Narendra Modi, they have made the issue political, and rather they should have just focused on the good structure that it is?
I think here's the thing. I think the Gujarat Cricket Association were trying to be a bit cheeky, but at the same time, I do feel that the issue was blown a bit out of proportion. Yeah, I'm not opposed to naming cricket stadiums after administrators, but I think the timing, they could have done it maybe 5 or 7 years down the line, something like that. So I think there was a bit of mischief on part of the Gujarat Cricket Association, but some of the reactions were maybe a bit blown out of proportion. People who were opposed to the whole naming fiasco. I mean, especially when they were raising up stuff about why did they remove Sardar Patel's name and all that stuff like that. And I think it was a bit blown out of proportion in general, I think, and neither side really helped the issue. Those are my thoughts.
Right. Okay. I mean, Udit, do you feel the same, or do you feel that I think you live in America, right? I mean, there's a lot of stadiums which directly go for corporate sponsorship. Like, I don't know, there's a Nike stadium. Do you think you would like to see something like that happen in India, where there is a sponsorship for that stadium?
Yeah, I think, having grown up in a place like, suppose, near Washington, D.C., where we had a Verizon Center where a lot of music artists come and perform, and also a lot of sports is played, like NBA is played, or ice hockey. That Verizon Center has turned into Capital One Arena, which is another public company. So yeah, I'm used to hearing those kind of names. I'm not used to hearing stadiums named after people. So, but again, like Amey and Acquin were talking, like Acquin and Vibhash were talking. I really don't give a damn about all this thing, who is it named after. However, I will point one thing. What excites me, like I watch a lot of tennis also, and I go with at US Open every year. Been doing that since I was a kid. I do like the idea of naming it after a player, a former player or something, whoever is associated with the sport. Like biggest tennis stadium in the world is inside USTA National Tennis Center in New York, where the US Open is played. And that biggest stadium is about 20,000 capacity for a tennis court. That's massive. And it's named after a guy called Arthur Ashe, one of the first African-American player. So something like that, I would love to see that. Like, but again, does it bother me? No. I mean, I don't give a damn, like I said, and people shouldn't either. It shouldn't become a big news. But yeah, going forward, maybe what we can learn from it also, like we can acknowledge some of the people who were around sports or have been around the sports or have played that particular sport. Like, and I hope that not just happens with cricket, also happens with hockey or other sports in India, which is played, whether it's a tennis stadium or a hockey stadium, they are named after the players who have actually played, like Dhanraj Pillai or Major Dhyan Chand Stadium and that. So I'm inclining towards that way. But yeah, it doesn't bother me. It's a topic which I hope not people don't bother about much writing on Twitter, and don't waste your time on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Amey? Like giving you the final word on the issue.
My final word on the issue is, I think as I told you guys before this podcast, I think I had a post on it on ICF as well, that it's a trend in India to name stadiums after cricket administrators. Wankhede was named after, Sunil Wankhede, who built the stadium in the 1970s, who was sitting MCA president. So I think probably what you say is correct. They were being a bit cheeky in rubbing it up in the noses of people and making it political when they shouldn't have. But I feel, in a way, I would like to see maybe a move away from naming stadiums after, after cricket administrators. I mean, sure, you can name ends, like you can have the Narendra Modi end, or, whatever end you have. But maybe I feel that cricket needs to move down a less political path, and maybe it is a situation where the simplest thing, in case you can't get sponsorship as they have in America, just name it after the geographic location. Like in Mumbai, we've got the BKC Stadium, Bandra Kurla Complex Stadium. It literally is just the location. It's very politically neutral. So those are my 2 cents on the matter.
But before we move on to the next question, there's something which was on my mind I wanted to share. You probably might be aware of, not. So Darren Sammy, the West Indian player who was the captain when West Indies won the T20 World Cup in India, there's a stadium named after him. He comes from an area called St. Lucia, and St. Lucia hadn't really created any popular cricketer. So when they came up with the stadium, they had to name it after a cricketer, and they named it after Darren Sammy. And I'm sure there are way better cricketers in India, better than Darren Sammy.
No, I mean,
it's just amazing how in some countries things are done differently. But yeah, nothing to compare. But yeah, go ahead, Acquin.
No, it makes sense because he is. I mean, if you look at T20 World Cup wise, the history of the T20 World Cup, he is the most successful captain. He's won 2 as a captain, so it makes complete sense. And I don't think that's the only occasion. Yeah, okay, maybe naming an entire stadium after a player. Yeah, I think that might be one of those rare exceptions. Is he currently active, or what is he up?
Yeah, he is.
Oh yeah. Okay. So
I know he's part of coaching staff and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Also.
But I do believe that the Virat Kohli end in Delhi Stadium, I mean, it's somewhat similar, like Virat Kohli Pavilion or end. I think that's what it's called. Yeah. I think in Ranchi they named it while Dhoni was still active. I think there is an MS Dhoni Pavilion there as well. So yeah, I don't think that's really a big deal. I think it makes sense. It makes sense for St. Lucians to name that stadium. He is their cricket hero, their cricket legend. So
one thing I'd like to add here, I think the problem the problem is that St. Lucia has only one cricketer. Here, for example, let's say we decide to rename the Chinnaswamy. There are so many cricketers in Karnataka who've played for Karnataka and India. You can name it after Kumble, you can name it after Srinath, you can name it after so many other cricketers. So for each and every state or association, if you have 3 or 4 very competitive names, it becomes very hard for the association to pick one name. I mean, stands, you can basically allocate it for the best 3 or 4, but for one person naming that thing, it creates its own issues. So I mean, I'm all for naming a stadium after geography, like Mohali Stadium. I know the official name is something else, but it's just common sense in a country like India to just keep it as neutral as possible, so that you can, as you say, it doesn't bother me, but you can just focus on the cricket.
Yeah, I just wanted to add also, so just for the viewers who might not know. So it was St. Lucia Stadium, which was named after Sammy. And the second most popular cricketer, which came out after CPL, was Johnston Charles. So what they went ahead and do was like the cricket stand, Johnston Charles stand on St. Lucia. So it was just interesting. It's great to see that they're appreciating their cricketers and they're trying to promote the game, because St. Lucia was the most popular island for cricket as compared to other islands in West Indies like Jamaica and Trinidad and Guyana. So it's nice. They're trying to promote the players and all that stuff. So it's always nice to see. I'm always backing these lower tier teams in CPL. CPL is really vastly followed in the United States because of the time zone also we're in. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting topic, honestly, Amey.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unending debate, so to say. And moving on to now our final question. I want you guys to tell me what you think is going to happen in the final test. Vibhash, just take it away. What do you think is going to happen? If India win the toss, what's going to happen? If India lose the toss, what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen?
I think it will be much closer match, but India will win this, definitely. And I expect that pitch will be much easier to bat on. So we'll see. Toss will definitely be a factor this time around.
Do you agree with him, Acquin?
Yeah. So if we win the toss, I think India should win in 4 days. If we lose, we might have to take it to the 5th day to win it. Yeah, toss will be a factor, but I don't think it will really be a detrimental factor at the end of the day. The one thing about this team, under the whole Kohli regime or the Kohli Shastri Rahane regime, whatever you want to call it, is they don't actually, at home at least, they don't repeat mistakes. And that's the reason why we have been unbeaten for a while now at home. We don't make these silly mistakes, against Australia when we lost that first test. No, we made sure that we wouldn't put ourselves in a situation where we'd end up losing another test match. So I don't expect us to make those mistakes. I think if we win the toss, 4 days. If we don't win the toss, in 5 days we should win it.
Right. Okay. So Udit, these two have suggested that it's going to be India all the way. Do you feel that India might actually have a crushing victory rather? Do you feel that the English morale has been crushed and India will just steamroll them, or do you agree with what they have to say?
I don't think we'll steamroll them. I think English players are capable of handling spin if it's a flat attack. Again, I think we are going to do well. I expect English players to probably put on 300 plus at least in the first innings. I do know if India wins the toss, I expect finally the youngster, the future stalwart we are all predicting, Gill, to finally come to the party. I want to see. He's had a quiet series so far after that brilliant Australian tour. What I really want to see is the partnership of Gill and Kohli together. Something a current stalwart and a future stalwart together batting for a long, like at least 2 sessions. I want to see that. I do believe India is going to put a big total if they bat first. And if we are not going to bat first, I think we are still going to get a big lead. I expect India to win on the morning of day 5. England is going to give us a hard time though. And that's why I'm telling you it's going to be day 5. It's going to be a red ball and it's going to be a much flatter pitch. India win on day 5 morning first session. What about you, Amey?
I mean, I personally think that there's a lot of demons in this English camp. They just want to get home. A lot of these players, the bio bubble and everything else. I don't think after the scars that Acquin and Akhtar have inflicted on them, especially the straight one going on, they're going to be in a position to, unless it's like an absolute featherbed of a pitch, it's really flat. I feel that India will absolutely crush them, and I would say an Indian victory would be on the morning of the 4th day. That's what my prediction is. All right.
Great. This is about does it for us. I mean, we've had a pretty organic, constructive discussion there. And any last words from anyone before we sign out?
No, I think it's been a really good discussion on the current topics at hand, and I certainly hope that those of you listening into this are happy with what has been said. Maybe you agree, disagree. By all means, post your comments on this video, and that's it for us. That's us signing off. Goodbye. Namaste.